Welcome back. 480 points higher still on the Nifty. We spoke a lot about gainers. Let's also look at some of the stocks that are bucking the trend in today's session. But just before that, pay attention to Rail Vikas Nigam, RVNL, which has emerged as the lowest bidder for a Southern Railway project worth 143 crore rupees. So railway stocks coming back into the limelight. 1.7% higher is RVNL, of course, significantly off its all-time high levels, which is around about 650 rupees. From there, it's now down to 350. So RVNL and Orderwin, the stock in focus. But a stock that is bucking the trend other than Muthoot Finance, as Manglam just mentioned a few minutes ago, is Max Healthcare. Is around 3% lower there. Jyoti Laboratories was up 10% on Wednesday, seeing some bit of profit booking from higher levels there. 2.5% lower on Jyoti Laboratories as well. But putting the spotlight on Apollo Hospitals, who's looking to increase capacity by 2,500 to 2,700 beds. My colleague Parikshit caught up with Apollo Hospitals' Shobana Kamineni and started by asking her about the growth and expansion plans of the company. Let's listen in.
Apollo Hospitals, we saw that there was a necessity as our, as capacity of most of our hospitals is close to about 75+%, and we had to move into that new expansion. And I think my sister Sunita is always very cautious, but at this point, we were able to actually get some really fine properties, whether it's Gurgaon, Pune, Mumbai. So these are cities that we didn't have enough presence in, and moving there. And of course, we're expanding in Chennai, doing another one in Hyderabad. So these are cities that we really have a strong presence. So going deeper into cities that we are and moving into other new cities. So yes, there's some exciting expansion happening in Apollo.
Right. If you can give us some numbers to quantify that, how much would you be investing in this expansion in FY26, and what is the overall bed capacity that could increase as a result?
So we're looking at increasing about 2,500 to 2,700 beds, and of varying investments, because some of them are really high tech, from things like a proton to a tertiary type hospital to just augmenting some of our secondary. So with all that, I think we're looking at something of over the next, we started last year. So the cycle of it, the investment cycle, would be anywhere in the range of 3,000 crores.
Okay. Speaking about the story of Apollo 24/7, this enterprise is now completing about 5 years. Could you give us a sense of the journey so far and the contribution of Apollo 24/7 to the larger group?
So sometimes, I like to say that we're actually a COVID baby. We started on February 5th, 2020, just before the lockdown. And during that time, it was almost a trial by fire. We didn't sleep for at least 18 months, because all of a sudden you've launched a platform and you expect to kind of grow slowly. And all of a sudden what happens, it hits you when you get 70,000 orders a day, when doctors who are shut off from their patients, we onboarded 3,500 doctors in 45 days to be able to connect them to their patients. So this really is the ethos, the story of why we're there with that. We could have been just, creating an omni-channel, just making sure that pharmacy is doing well. We know that e-commerce, there was 1mg, there was PharmEasy and all these. So we said we need to have another muscle, and this is another capability. So we could have done that. But I think we stepped back and said, that doesn't serve. It still is so transactional. What is it that a patient needs? And it was so fortunate that we really had a platform that had consultation, that would give people diagnostics, that would be able to give them medicines. And just that capability that we started with was just amazing during that 1-2 years. Of course, there was a lot of failure, but then you're flying midair and refueling and keep changing. And then post-COVID, we fell off a cliff. just like the rest of the world, telemedicine, they were almost, everyone wanted to come back to see their doctor. Then even in the other part, we were really burning thinking we're an e-commerce company. So I think the last 2 years really got our act together. So I think this is the time that it's a very short maturity cycle to think that in 5 years you can go from start to actually becoming mature and profitable. But that's the journey of Apollo. That we had the capability to do it.
Right. So it was almost like a startup in a sense.
Totally.
Totally. And, startups sometimes have a long road to profitability. How has that panned out for you?
So I think they had at the beginning, they always said that it's a disadvantage to have an old founder who didn't understand burn with this when they kept coming to me with metrics and saying...
You can't call yourself old from any angle.
No. But look, I'm not. This is a business. E-commerce is a business that my kids should be doing. So they said, oh, you don't understand this, of how you have to burn and you have to do all this. And then one fine day, I really learned. I listened for 2 years, and then I said, enough. This just is not working. How can a company work that loses money? You have to make money. And at that time, when we really sat down and said, and we did a lot of true navel gazing, and we said, we have these customers. We have 40 million people who are loyal, who love us. How do we serve them better? By being omni. And I think that was the eureka, that we really started doing so much better. So I would think the journey of the last 2 years is just refocusing on our customer, saying that how do you serve these customers better, and then more will come in.
My final 2 questions, ma'am. One would be about the impact of Trump tariffs. He has imposed tariffs, then he has put a pause on it, then he said that the 10% baseline will continue. He gave a carve-out for the pharma sector, then he said, please be warned, pharma tariffs are coming like never before. How do you see this impacting the healthcare industry, the pharma industry, with investments, with manufacturing and operations?
I think with a large domestic market, so there's going to be a lot of focus on trying to sell. Even so, I feel for the Indian pharma. It's an $8.8 billion export business, and I don't think that Americans will allow Trump to take that away from them, because that's the only place they're getting a price advantage. So that's there, park that. But I think what's happening now is, for the last couple of years, I've noticed actually the last decade shift, is that Indian manufacturers have become dominant in India. It used to be that the foreign guys would come to India and import a lot of drugs. Now the top 10 sales of sales drug pharma companies are all Indian. And that's fantastic, because they've seen a large addressable Indian market. And this is something now that even the foreign markets want to come into. How can I get into India? So India's in a sweet spot with regard to this. And the fact that we have our own barriers, because the MRPs are so low. They're the lowest in the world. In one way, I'm so happy for the Indian customer, because they buy medicines cheaper than anywhere in the world.